The Punic Wars, a Carthaginian Nightmare, by Saket Potlery. The Punic Wars were a series of 3 wars lasting a total of 118 years. The series of wars cost both Rome and Carthage a total of an estimated 1,615,000 deaths. The compromise of the wars also cost Carthage an estimated 3,200 talents, which is equal to about $3,571,200,000 US, as well as their land in Sicily and many other areas. The conflict in the Punic Wars is represented by Carthage and Rome battling over land. The compromise of the Punic Wars is represented by currency, land, and peace. The First Punic War lasted for 23 years, from 264 BC to 241 BC. The First Punic War was a big war that resulted in the deaths of an estimated 400,000 people. The Punic War started in the 260 BCs when both powers wanted control over the largest Mediterranean island, Sicily. In the end, though, Rome took down Carthage at the Battle of Sicily. Carthage handed over Sicily, as well as a few smaller Mediterranean islands, had to pay 2,200 talents up front, about $2,455,200,000 US, and 1,000 talents over the span of 10 years, about $1,116,000,000, in the Treaty of 241 BC. The Second Punic War lasted for 17 years, from 218 BC to 201 BC. The Second Punic War was an even more fatal war than the first, with an estimated of 700,000 deaths. The Second Punic War started when Carthage was ashamed of defeat and was bent on the idea of revenge on Rome. After Hamilcar Barca, a great general for Carthage, died in 228 BC, another man took the idea of being a general for the Carthaginian army. His son, Hannibal. Hannibal became a huge threat to the Roman Empire and even took a blood oath to never side with the Romans. After many great battles and ideas, including Hannibal's amazing feat of taking his army over the Alps to sneak attack their opponents, the Romans prevailed once again. This war ended in the baiting of Rome to come to Carthage in Africa. The final Punic War did not end in compromise, but in the burning of Carthage to the ground. This war resulted in the deaths of mostly Carthaginians, an estimated 445,000 deaths. With only 55,000 Carthaginian survivors left, they were sold into slavery, and the Carthaginian territory was made a Roman province in Africa. So, how did the Punic Wars affect history? The Punic Wars affected Rome's history more than Carthage's, as Carthage was destroyed. One thing the Punic Wars affected was Rome's trading status, because it was able to trade with the new territories that it received, which helped it grow economically. One example of this was after the First Punic Wars, when Rome gained control over the island of Sicily. Sicily provided Rome with many resources, but most importantly was a great source of grain for Rome. Another example of this was after Rome gained control of Spain after the Second Punic War. Spain was a good source of silver, copper, and iron, as well as agricultural products and fish. At the time of the end of the Second Punic War, Rome established itself as the most powerful nation in the Mediterranean. Therefore, the Punic Wars affected Rome's trading status because it was able to trade for more resources with the territories it received. Another effect that the Punic Wars had was that it gave Rome a better political status. After the Second Punic War, the pressures that it was faced with led Rome to a few political changes. One major change that happened was that in the Roman Empire, the Senate gained more power, wealth, and prestige in the government. In an essay written on the impact of the Punic Wars on Roman history, in paragraph 3, it reads, "The pressures that Rome faced during the Second Punic War resulted in significant changes to the Roman political system. The Senate gained increased prestige, greater wealth, and more influence in Roman government. Rule by Senate was consolidated due to the success with which they conducted the Second Punic War and the economic power they held through the control of huge estates many senators established after the war. This means that the Senate gained more power, wealth, and prestige in the Roman government because of the success it had in the Second Punic War. This quote explains how the Punic Wars affected history as well. One final way that the Punic Wars helped Rome was with its geographical status. The Punic Wars gave Rome all of Carthage's territory as Carthage was destroyed. By the end of the First Punic War, Rome had gained control of Sicily and a couple more Mediterranean islands. By the end of the Second Punic War, Rome had control of almost all of Carthage's territory, leaving it as just a small state. And by the end of the Third Punic War, Rome had destroyed the rest of it. In an essay on the impact of the Punic Wars on Rome and history, in paragraph 5, the essay reads, "After the Second Punic War, Rome established itself as the most powerful nation in the Mediterranean. Carthage was reduced to a mere client state of Rome, and its navy was reduced to just 10 ships, and they were forbidden from raising an army without the permission of Rome. Local rivals took advantage of this, and when Carthage raised an army to defend itself from these incursions, it was destroyed by Rome in the Third Punic War. Rome, on the other hand, had taken a key step toward their domination of the Mediterranean." This quote explains how after Carthage was whittled down to a mere state, it was destroyed by Rome completely. After a record written at the time of the Punic Wars was kept. This document was written by Greek historian Polybius and is called the Histories. Thankfully, it is on the web nowadays, translated from Greek to English. His writing, the Histories, covers the time period from 264 BC to 146 BC and has lots of primary information about the Punic Wars. The Histories Book 3 contains information on the causes of the Punic Wars and two other wars, the Social War and the War for Coel Syria. The Histories book calls the Punic Wars as the Hannibalic Wars. Quoting from the translation, Fabius, the Roman annalist, says that besides the outrage on the Saguntino, a cause of the war was Hasdrubal's ambition and love of power. He tells us how, after having acquired a great dominion in Spain, he arrived in Africa and attempted to abolish the constitution of Carthage and change the form of government to a monarchy. The leading statesmen, however, got wind of his project and united to oppose him, upon which Hasdrubal, suspicious of their intentions, left Africa and in future governed Iberia as he chose, without paying any attention to the Carthaginian Senate. Hannibal, from boyhood, had shared and admired Hasdrubal's principles, and on succeeding to the governor-generalship of Iberia, he had employed the same method as Hasdrubal. Consequently, he now began this war against Rome on his own initiative and in defiance of the Carthaginian opinion. Not a single one of the notables in Carthage approving his conduct towards Saguntum. This quote from paragraph 8 of Book 3 explains one cause of the Second Punic War. The Punic Wars were a series of great wars that shaped our world today. It was a very costly and intriguing series of wars. The wars had ups and downs to both sides of it. It wasn't very much of a one-sided war. The main conflict that caused these deathly wars were the two areas fighting over land, and Rome striding for the thought of complete control over the Mediterranean, and the Carthaginians defending their homeland. The biggest compromise that ended the First Punic War, the Treaty of 241 BC, involved money, land, and peace.